everyone. I'm Nisha Girdhar from Fidelity International. While I was coming to this summit today in the cab, I was just wondering about how our lives are completely taken over by platforms. Maybe Netflix, maybe Instagram, but it's not so much the platforms that we use, it's more about people behind the platforms, behind the code. There are stories, there are people, and the choices that people make. And that's where we are here for this conversation today, to talk about, as the speed of AI conversation, everywhere you go, people are talking about AI, okay? It's the speed of AI conversation is like the speed of technology, but it's not so much the speed of humanity. So to bring that all together, this conversation is about barriers to breakthrough. And before we start the conversation, I want to introduce the movement that all four of us panelists are part of, Women for Ethical AI, UNESCO Women for Ethical AI. So UNESCO Women for Ethical AI is a growing movement. It's a joint collaboration between Amrita University and UNESCO South Asia offices based in New Delhi. And it's specifically the South Asia chapter that all four of us are part of. We also have another member here who's in the audience. This chapter ensures that women's voices, lived and experience are across South Asia shape the future of AI. Okay, it's this network, Women for Ethical AI, it's a collective of doers, dreamers, policy makers. So where everyone comes together, and we are working on 3 work streams, which are research and innovation, policy, and advocacy, inclusion and equity. And through this, we are learning how women participate in AI and advocating for gender-sensitive policies, as well as building mentorship pathways. And my favorite part is to celebrate women who lead with intelligence and empathy. So today I'll just start with, sorry, I realized you didn't introduce the panel, so I'll start with introducing the panel first, and then I'll tell a short story about myself, then we have a few rounds of questions across the panel, okay? So sitting here in the room is Saloni. We have 2 panel members who are online. Saloni is a seasoned leader in IT delivery, IT quality and delivery excellence, compliance and AI governance, currently heading AI policy initiatives at a Finland-based multinational. With nearly 2 decades of experience across IT quality, risk and GRC, she develops frameworks for responsible AI compliance with EU AI Act. As I mentioned, she's also a member of UNESCO Women for Ethical AI. Saloni advocates for robust ethical AI policies at global forums and summits. She's a proof that governance can be bold. Okay. Next, I'll move to Aditi, who's live on Zoom with us. Aditi comes with an extensive corporate, public, and consulting experience, with a decade of which was in strategy and consulting in PwC across Europe, US, India, and Australia. She's anchored and led several business transformation projects in energy, manufacturing, infrastructure vertical. She's been a global trainer in PwC Academy and has taught in several internal and external consulting courses. In her public experience, she was heading the Nordic India Consulting Desk for furthering relationship with India and Nordic ministries and offices. She's earlier worked for Chairman Office heading strategy financial offerings for Tech Mahindra. Aditi holds a business administration and master's in public administration from London School of Economics. She is a strategist who makes transformation sounds exciting. And last, but definitely not the least, we have Shreya. Shreya is energy, creativity, purpose, all in one. Shreya is the managing director of anitaB.org, India. She has nearly 20 years of experience in marketing and corporate communications and CSR. A change maker across tech, inclusion, and the arts. She chairs the Policy Advocacy Committee of UNESCO's Women for Ethical AI South Asia. She's held leadership roles at Aon and First Advantage, and founder of Onyx Communications. A certified NLP practitioner and POSH trainer, Shreya co-authored Words Matter, a book on powering girls through vocabulary. She has received awards including Global Leader and the Brand Leadership Award. She's a published poet, a trained dancer, and a theater artist. She's hosted over 1,500 events, and now I'm wondering why I'm hosting this one. She's done a much better job as a moderator. And she runs a sustainable fashion blog called Drama Rani. So that's Shreya. And before we start with the panel, I'll just start with, last week when we were preparing for this panel discussion. Shreya said a very interesting thing, that while we are in the panel, let's just talk like friends, which really stuck with me. Let's just keep this conversation seamless. Let's just talk, keep it very engaging and conversational. Okay? And on that note, I'll start with my personal story. Okay? So, I have always worked very close to technology since the start of my career in data analytics, digital delivery. And about 2 to 3 years back, I realized there's something cool happening in my organization, which is Fidelity's AI space. So it sounded cool, so I thought I want, this is something that I should be part of. So I went there and I just asked that I want in. I had no idea what I would do, what my role would look like, but I was sure that this is something that I want to get closer to. And since then, I've been part of the AI Center of Excellence for Fidelity. Once I got closer, I realized that AI isn't about machines replacing people. It's about people shaping what machines do. Okay, it's about responsibility and empathy, values, and making sure technology serves the society that we build, not the other way around. Today, I work very deep in AI. However, what excites me most, what I'm inspired by most, is the responsible AI movement that we are part of. Because it reminds me that even if we are not writing the code, we can still shape the values behind it. And with that said, I'll just move to the idea of barriers and inclusion. I'll start with Saloni here. And Saloni, where you physically sit today, because that you're the only one in person in the panel. What are some of the barriers that still persist for women in AI, whether cultural, educational, or even invisible ones, which we don't talk about enough?
Thank you so much, Nisha. First and foremost, good morning, everyone. We were just having a laugh some time back that it's really going to be a casual, friendly chat because the room was almost empty. So we feel a little more nervous now. But good, this is not an exam. And the idea very much between Aditi, Shreya, me and Nisha is that we keep it casual and we keep it genuine, yeah? Because we represent very responsibly Women for Ethical AI here, powered by UNESCO. And we are all volunteers here on a non-monetary basis. On the personal or professional front, we are employed with different organizations. This is a cause we are all attached to because we really believe in it. Yeah, and I think even the topic of the panel is excellent, from barriers to breakthrough. So since I've been asked to first talk about barriers, I think I'll just be repeating a few things which all of you know. Maybe let's start with some statistics. So if we just look at 2024, the number of women enrolled in AI courses were 5% of the overall enrollment. I'm just talking about India numbers here. Can you guess what is the enrollment percentage for 2025? Anybody? Okay, all right. So we have grown 4 times already from barriers to breakthrough. I'm just telling you the India numbers. In 2025, there's already 20% enrollment that we are seeing. So yeah, breakthrough, but then again, when you compare it to the 80% versus the 20%, there's always this ratio mismatch, yeah? So definitely we need to be mindful about why only 20% women, right? Of course, we represent the South Asia chapter too. So even at a South Asia level, if we see the enrollments in STEM kind of courses are around 40%, which is encouraging. It's a much improving trend than what I think organizations like UNESCO have been working towards in the past decades. But the troubling picture or the disturbing picture is about what happens after these foundational courses that women take. Yeah, when we look at the numbers that are enrolling in for more technical, professional kind of courses or joining research in the space of AI, there again the numbers are not very encouraging. So definitely on the educational side, there are barriers that we need to overcome, Nisha. Why? I think at least in this room and especially the South Asia chapter that we belong to, we are all very aware of how we are organized culturally or socially, right? There are, I think to start with, it's in the mind of women. Yeah, we have this imposter syndrome. We have this persona of us within our minds, and that's the same with society too, that women are more nurturers. We should go in for more softer fields, you know, arts, humanities, and probably will not do so well. So even if like I've been in the IT industry for 2 decades now, been in some leadership roles, but I have to accept that even if you have been fortunate enough to climb the ladder. There are many other women who are working hard, but then structurally, the companies today are not organized in a way that there is a lot of room for women on the top. Yeah, again, I can throw statistics, and probably a lot of us are aware. This is a known thing. We are discussing about it in different forums, but it's still a barrier. So definitely, I would say these are the barriers that we need to be mindful about.
Thanks, Saloni. Now, you could have said it better, because though we've made progress, but we still have a long road to cover, a long way to go. I'll move to Shreya now, and we'll change topics a little bit on learning some of the real life stories, if Shreya can share. So, Shreya, you work with and mentored so many women across India. Can you share a moment or project where someone broke through a limitation, maybe a mindset, or it was required essentially? So I would just pass it on to you, Shreya.
So many of them, right? Especially when you look at women's representation in the workforce. I'll start with a simple example of how there was this particular team that was working on the Oculus, right? It was an Oculus they were trying to sell. Until they had a woman with curly hair on their team, they didn't realize that their product was not meant for curly haired people at all, right? Because of the way it sat on the eye, it was just not okay. So representation is about having people on teams that are designing or building products and services for the people it's being designed and built for. I'll give you an example. Recently there was an AI product that was being built for women in a particular online payment ecosystem. And the team had 30 because it didn't have the representation of the people or the ones that it was being built for. So you'll see thousands of examples like this, but you will also see that AI has built into it, because of the kind of data that it's learning from. Machine learning learns from data that's inherently biased. So until there is neutral data that's actually fed into the system, you're going to see the same perpetuation of that bias. There was a really, Amazon, I can take the name, did this entire programmatic intervention of trying to build this hiring platform that was going to be neutral, that was supposed to do gender neutral hiring through gender neutral resumes. But what happened was the AI started learning about the names of women's colleges, started learning the bad resumes, and started excluding women resumes, right? So they had to go back to the table and redo the entire programming. And they relaunched it, of course, but after a lot of the interventions that were needed. So there are infinite examples of this kind of gaps that exist, and that is because we don't have enough representation right from the top, right? When you have more people who it's being built for, you will automatically have more leverage, have more equitability, and lesser bias.
Thank you so much, Shreya. That was very, very well put. And you know, the idea of creating a product for the user who's not part of the room, you kind of relate so well, that if the user and the user's needs are not considered, which is women users, or to be more inclusive, that's central to any product design, and that's central to the AI revolution that you're talking about. I'll just call Aditi to also come in here. And Aditi, since we're talking about women's lived experiences, how do you feel that they bring fresh perspective into shaping AI, like shaping technologies that are more empathetic, inclusive, and truly human-centered?
Thanks, Nisha, and thank you for this community where all of us like-minded believe in the representation and the cause. Just to also tell you that I've been in the innovation and the AI for social good work for almost now a decade, because I'm a computer science engineer and I was one of the 16 students, one of the girls in the 16 who were selected in my computer science engineering days. So the story goes really far. I think it's unfair to say that we haven't progressed from where we were, as Saloni rightly put it. But is there a lot of room to improve and grow? Yes. The way women bring perspectives into creating products, as also highlighted by Shreya in some of the examples she gave, is a very different perspective.
To segue into my next question, which I had for Shreya, we spoke about how there are there are there's so much movement that we're noticing within India and South Asia. So Shreya, my question to you is, what feels unique about women leaders in South Asia and India when compared to their Western counterparts? Is there anything unique? Are there any unique differences that you've noticed how we are sharing this space?
So I was saying one of the most interesting things about looking at anthropology, which plays such an important role in AI, is to look at historically how civilizations formed. When you look at naturally, culturally indigenous spaces, and especially when you look at Southeast Asia and South Asia, you will notice the idea of community, the idea of building together as community, you know, the way the operations of the world have worked fundamentally is vastly different from the Western world, or the way the Western world was created, crafted, etc. Now, did the Western world have these indigenous cultures? Yes. But what permeated through those cultures was a very white, cis-het narrative, cisgender, heteronormative narrative that perpetuated into the way technology was built, into the way AI is currently looked at. The proligarchy, as you call it, I'm sure I can say this unapologetically in this room, it's brought us to the spaces that we're in right now. And clearly that's not sustainable, that's not serving its purpose, it's creating a lot more damage. So when you look at intersections of the roles of not just women, whether we're talking about disabled, LGBTQIA, the entire idea of community is already deeply steeped in the ideas of the Eastern cultures. Right? So it's important for us to also understand the nuances of history and anthropology and psychology of how this works. And that's why it's so vastly different. And that's why we need representation, because what is collaborative and built with all of these voices coming together under one roof can only be something that's more sustainable, whether you look at climate, whether you look at AI and the whole disruption that's happening currently. When you look at the technology revolution back in the day, it's the same story. Women were the first computer scientists because they were the ones that had learned how to type, right? They became the typists, so the first computer operators were women. But once technology took over and software took over, you immediately had a role reversal. So where wealth goes, the male, you know, epidemic sort of also goes.
Your talks whenever we listen to you. Thank you so much for sharing those perspectives. I'll have one more question for Aditi before I come back to the room to Saloni. So Aditi, you did cover quite a broad spectrum when you spoke about your work for AI for social good. Now, since you're one of the leaders for inclusion workstream within Women for Ethical AI, Equity and Inclusion, is there anything you want to share on the work that the workstream is doing for the benefit of the audience in the room here?
Sure, no thanks. I think as the premise of my work started, kudos to UNESCO and Amrita for putting together a bunch of us to get together to say you all are speaking the same language, you all are birds of the same tribe. So we want to make sure that your voices are heard. Thanks to people like Shreya who amplify our voices and take it to the right channels, and Anita me doing exactly the work that they need to, which is gender representation in technology, and many of us, including Nisha, you and Saloni, and many of our members. So while I would love to talk to you about what we are doing in the inclusion workstream, what I'm going to do is also zoom out and tell you a little bit about what we are doing across the UNESCO work group.
In fact, it reminds me that to call that on LinkedIn we have this forum called Women for Ethical AI South Asia chapter. So if you would like to follow us, you'll get access to all the stories, etc. that we talk about, which we regularly release for creating more awareness around this topic. I'll just come back to Saloni here, and as I mentioned in the introduction, her background is more on the quality and policy side of things. So I'll just shift gears a little bit. I'll ask Saloni. I know there's a lot of work that we are anyways doing, but for you personally, what is that one thing, if you want to change about the AI policies, they want to share with the audience?
Sure. I think through the last probably 15-20 minutes that Shreya, Aditi and I are putting a point across, you would probably hear a lot of repetition, a lot of duplicate ideas That's because we all work very coherently towards a common cause. But yeah, coming from profile and experience more, which is about setting the right frameworks within organizations. In fact, just today while coming here, I was reading this very interesting headline on the newspaper, I think in some newspaper yesterday. The Google India head said that AI should not be about improving balance sheets. It should be about improving human lives. Yeah, and it's I'm Preeti something. So kudos to her. What a beautiful statement, right? And whenever we talk about policies, regulations, it is not just the commercial aspect that a technology or a changing trend brings in. Of course, that is inevitable, and that's why all the corporates and the giants are running after it. But it should be for the better of society. It should be for the good of society. So if as somebody who is more responsible towards making regulations, policies, if I have to look at it that way, especially the unit and the organization that I'm representing today, the most important thing I would say would be intersectional diversity, where we say that women, for that matter, minorities, not just women, need to be fairly represented right from education, because that's the source through which you are joining the industry. When you are in an organization, fair representation is not just about you being part of the technology and the development team. Fair representation is about you being able to rise to the decision-making level. Yeah. So we don't need just women in the corporate. We don't just need women in technical roles. We need women in very, very powerful roles. Yeah. And then there's another very famous term which we are talking about, I think in the last session also, human in the loop. As in my humble opinion, I always strongly believe that in the space of AI, we need to take a step forward now from human in the loop and talk about the right human in the loop. Yeah, it is about the application, the use case that you are talking about. It's not just enough to say that there is some human who's validating the outcome of this application or this platform. It is about, is that human one of the impacted stakeholders, or at least representing the group of impacted stakeholders? So I would say these are the two most important things, Nisha. One is representation at all the levels, not just consultation, up till decision making. And another is when you say human in the loop, the right human, women included, in the loop, in form of getting educated, joining the work stream, joining the industry, holding strong technical roles in the development side, and holding very strong roles in the decision-making side, roles up to the level where somebody decides whether this is safe, responsible, ethical to put this application on the market or no.
I love that. I love that point. Right human in the loop. We use it at work all the time of human in the loop, human over the loop, human on the loop. There are so many different connotations to this, but this one really resonates so well. And you've already answered my next question, which was about like what one action would you urge government and organizations present here to unlock the potential for women in AI. So you've already answered that. So I'll just now go to my last question. And there are, it's not even an if, there are young women who are watching us in this session today. What is that one advice, if they think that AI isn't for me, what's that one advice you would like to give them? And this for all three of you. I'll just request you to keep a little bit brief because we're almost at the close of the session. Okay, so Sloan, you want to go first? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think what I love is, at least in this room, even with a few of our friends walking out, the representation is beautiful, yeah? I mean, we don't have to worry about the imbalance here, at least in this room right now. So to all the women and friends sitting here, I would say that your voices are not just needed. Yeah, your participation is not just needed in the space of AI and technology anymore. It is very critical because it's not just about the career you are about to make. Maybe some of you will decide to make a full-fledged career. We are in changing times, right? Some of you will decide to be the normal, respectable women, our persona that we are, Indian women, managing a job, a career, and a family. Remember, even as a mother, a couple of years down the line, you would be doing something responsible by taking part today, sharing your views very strongly, because then that carves what your children will be using in future in terms of AI and all the super cool things that we are developing today. So I would say you are not needed, you are super critical. So please join the force and please join it with a lot of power.
I cannot stop myself because there is a little bit of research that I did early this year about new jobs that are coming in with AI, prompt engineering, all of you would have heard of. See, women have a lot of natural skills like communications, empathy, and with technology humanizing, these skills are core to areas like prompt engineering. So women have a natural benefit to get into these roles. Not that men are bad in comms, it's just that there are certain things that come naturally to us. There's a lot of research on this as well. And as I said, I'd personally done a lot of research. I'd interviewed few prompt engineers and I'd written about it as well. So look for areas where you can actually contribute. Because there are already opportunities that are right there. Okay, so I'll just encourage everyone to kind of, as Shreya also mentioned, play with it, try at your home, just use your ChatGPT, try. When you ask a question, it's essentially a prompt. So everybody of us here is essentially a prompt engineer when you're interacting. Now, if you ask it a complex question, that's when you kind of enhance your skills. So you can give it a case study to solve with. I remember one of my friends, when she started her prompt engineering journey, she said that she was living in London at that time and she was planning a vacation with 13 family members in different countries. So she just gave that entire problem statement to AI, and this is like a year back I'm talking about, and now things have evolved a lot. That like these are different people in my family, like ABCD in different countries. So the visa permissions. So based on these 13 different passports, which is the one country that we can go to, which will take so much time in visa, and we can plan this, this vacation in December. So this is just a personal problem which she tried with, but essentially it was a testament to her prompt engineering skills. She's actually one of the best prompt engineers in our organization. But it's just at what you're doing at your personal level kind of prepares you. Okay, so I'd like to thank everyone. The way you answered this question as well, it was more like an invitation for action for the people present here, and it just brings us closely to the heart of this initiative, Women for Ethical AI. It's not about the boardrooms and labs where the AI future is going to be decided. It's the people conversations that are going to do that. And I'll just say a few words. Tech should wow us, but it should also work for us. Not just powerful, but purposeful, smart, but fair at the same time, intelligent, but human. Thank you so much, everyone. And if you have any questions, do we have time for questions? Okay, so yeah, let's take a few questions then.
I don't have the question pointed at any person, so please feel free to anybody who wants to answer it. I think when we've been looking at the room, when it's Women for AI, it's mostly women that I see. I don't see men, I don't see queer people, I don't see too much representation, it's mostly women. And even when we're talking about AI, when you speak of women, it feels very homogeneous as a group. Are we looking at trans people? Are we looking at queer people? Are we looking at disabled women? Are we, like, how do we go about that? How do we make that? I know we've talked about diversity, but in reality, how much of it actually works? How much of it is actually in the works?
Shreya, Aditi? Yeah.
I'm happy to go. It's not, unfortunately. It's not in the works. It needs to be in the works. And it needs a push because we are still talking about integrating LGBTQIA, disability and neurodivergence in our everyday life. Right? In our everyday workplaces. We're not there yet. So obviously the AI that we're building will reflect those gaps. And until we make it a part of our culturally complex narrative of societally actually accepting it. And I keep saying this, the gaps are because the same men and patriarchal women at home are the ones sitting in those boardrooms. To change the mindset of people in boardrooms and workplaces, you need the mindset of the family and the unit of society to change. And until that happens, until we stop commenting on somebody's life choice of being LGBTQIA as a fad, until we stop saying that, ableism is such a given, until we start seeing some of the privileges that a lot of us hold and
So beautifully put, Shreya. And I think one thing that we were also discussing through this entire panel is I completely agree with Shreya, we are not there. And you knew even before you asked the question. But it is again about having the right human in the loop. Yeah. So, and the right human is a very, very broad term. So even if we are representing women for ethical AI, today honestly we are representing ethical AI. Yeah, it's just women working towards that. So please do not assume that in this entire agenda we are just looking at women. We are a group of women who are very, very committed to this cause. Of course, we will have a little bit inclination towards our own gender, but then at the same time, our purpose and our agenda is much broader. It is about having the right people, the right human involved at the right level, all the right levels.
At one point here, you've rightly observed that there are more women in the room, and that's what happens with these conversations wherever we have, that when we're talking about women in certain area, there are only women in those, mostly women in those rooms. And I asked myself that question, you know, when I first started stepping out of the house. But then I realized at least those conversations are happening. At least people are becoming aware. Now when you go out, when people hear, they listen and they go out, they would at least have that awareness that they can ask. They can ask questions. So that at least that's one starting point. And the work that we are anyways doing, we've already shared. So there's a lot of movement currently. It's like a kid in an NICU. Essentially, it's still critical, but the situation is improving. Okay, so that's the analogy I could think of. I've read it in a book.
Yeah. First, I'd like to share, I read one case study of Timnit Gebru. She was allegedly fired from Google when she wrote about AI ethics in 2020. And there were some allegations due to racism, and there were plenty of reasons that she was fired. And she was writing about AI ethics only. And the top hierarchy persons fired her. And later on, what she did, she founded DAIR, that is Distributed AI Research Institute for all over the world, who are the marginalized people who can connect and who can talk about AI ethics at global level. That's what I wanted to add to the conversation. And one question I have is that as we see, there are guidelines for the ethical AI principles are there. UNESCO has given, OECD, and there are multiple multinational organizations. They have put up guidelines, even the National Niti Aayog has given for India. But there are the principles, not the regulations like EU AI Act in place for the global level. So how do we balance it? Because we are saying representation is needed, but there are still biases. We are telling the organizations to go and to regulate, like voluntary regulations, there are guidelines. But if there are no regulations, how will they do it? And if we put on so much pressure on them, then there won't be much of an innovation. So how do we balance that?
I love it that you ask questions where you know the answer, yeah, that we are not there yet. So let me start with a disclaimer, we are not there yet. But having said that, what I can tell you is at least within Women for Ethical AI South Asia chapter, when Nisha was introducing us and Aditi was giving some light on what we do, you will see that one of the work streams that we are working on is policy, yeah. If you look at just individuals who are very passionate about this cause, who realize that there are policies and bills perhaps, and no shame to accept that India is not at its greatest. Of course, we can look at Europe. They are already out with the Data Privacy Act, and the AI Act is out now. All good references. Yeah, I don't think that these policies and these acts, of course, there could be some local flavors, some regional flavors, but a lot of it is generic, and nobody is stopping us from kind of referring to that and take in best practices. But what you are saying is extremely important, that there can be acts, and there can be bills, and there can be regulations, but how are we enforcing it? And more importantly, I think before enforcing, what kind of ecosystem are we building to help smaller companies, medium-sized IT companies to actually operationalize this? So in fact, this is an area where I am doing my research, so I'm extremely passionate about this. And so far what I have found out is that all those startups and medium-sized IT companies, whoever are making beautiful things on AI, even if they have an intent, to actually do it the right way, ethical way, this is a lot of times a very expensive topic. Yeah, it's not the same thing for a small or medium-sized IT startup to set up a complete AI governance board and look at the full ethics topic as easy as it could be for, say, like Infosys, yeah, who have already released their AI toolkit and so on. So there is a need for more people to step out, and that's why we are a part of communities like this, where we know that this is an important thing. We need to probably make cheap or free of cost operational level toolkits, assets that are taking in good practices from these regulations, whether it is in India or worldwide, and then make it available to the larger crowd. Take in inputs, what are their challenges, what are the barriers that these companies are facing, why is it that it is so difficult to talk ethics, why is it that it is so difficult to do a detailed impact assessment beyond the financial ROI, yeah, and the investment that you would put in as a company. And then taking cues from there, making these operational toolkits and making that available to the larger ecosystem, the IT ecosystem in India. So we are not there, but are at least some people working towards it? I would think yes.